Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am the Tome Scourer, and today I bring you my wackiest of decks in this deck tech video on the Scarab God. Alright, so I had this really sort of harebrained idea that I wanted to do sort of this steal or theft theme to a deck. And I thought the Scarab God would be pretty cool for that because we do technically steal things from our opponent's graveyards if we wish by doing its second ability down here, which is it's sort of like eternalizing that mechanic, but it doesn't actually say eternalize. But it's essentially sort of the same thing. You pay 2, a blue and a black. You can exile a creature card from a graveyard and create a token that's a copy of it, except for it's a 4/4 black zombie. So 4/4s are no joke to begin with, so that's really nice. Plus, the more zombies we have, it says at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life, and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. So hopefully with a couple of things in here, we'll be able to instead draw rather than scrying. You'll probably see that here in a little bit, or maybe you probably already know what that card is. But basically, we're going to try and do a Turgid hidden commander in this deck where we wheel a lot of people. Wheeling people out, making them discard their hand and draw cards. Unfortunately, Hull Breacher was just banned, so I took that out of here. But we still wheeling, I think, is a little bit more fun than just milling somebody. So we'll try and go for that strategy while also stealing some of their stuff at the same time to help us out and get to where we need to be. All right, so that is the commander, the Scarab God. First, we have a couple of Planeswalkers. The first one being Liliana Dreadhorde's General, and says whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. Now, we do have some sack outlets in here, and we may be sacking some stuff, but it's kind of nice to be able to have that card draw on a commander. And then we get to create zombies, and then we can make each player sacrifice 2 creatures with his -4 ability. All right, we probably will never get to the -9 with this thing. It's probably not going to happen. We just really want those first 2 abilities on here to make zombies and make people sacrifice stuff so that we can take it from them if we have Turgid on the battlefield. All right. Next up, we have Tevish Zot. So that's our second and last Planeswalker here. Basically, you can sacrifice stuff to draw cards, and then we get to be able to create Thrall creature tokens to help us do that. And then our goal is to get this to -10 and alt it, and then be able to gain control of all commanders, because I know in a theft deck that just seems like a lot of fun. All right, so now we get into our theft creatures. First, we have Thieving Skydiver, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. So you can steal people's soul rings for a mere 3 mana. You can get a 2/1 flying creature and take somebody's soul ring. That's pretty good. That's a great early game card right here. All right, next we have Thief of Sanity. Just some of our low CMC creatures to hopefully get out quickly so that we can, do some damage and maybe cast some stuff off the top of our opponent's libraries. Fun card here, we have Thada Adel Acquisitor. I have played with this in a different deck, and it is fun to pull this off and be able to get damage through with its Island Walk ability, and then search a player's library for an artifact, and then you can play that card. So, if you just go straight to combat and you swing with this with somebody who has an island, you're going to go out and you're going to search for a cheap artifact, and you're going to play it pretty easily. All right. Next thing we have Gonti, Lord of Luxury, so that when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 4 cards of opponent's library. We get to take one of those, exile it, and cast it at a later time, which is also a very cool card to have. Next thing, I've not been able to ever actually use this card. This is sort of a newer one for me. It's an old legend card, and it says gain control of target legend or legendary permanent. To pay 2 blue and tap it, and then gain control. So if we can steal other people's commanders with this, I mean, it's just kind of dirty and also hilarious at the same time. So I thought that would be fun for this kind of deck. And then we have a new card. We have Xanathar Guild Kingpin. And this says, at the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. Until end of turn, that player can't cast spells. You may look at the top card of their library anytime, and you may play the top card of their library. All right. We do have some cards in here that will help us have some extra upkeeps. We'll get to those in a little bit. So hopefully we can be looking at several opponents' hands and playing several of their cards. And then, this is just kind of like a salty hate card, and it just goes perfectly in this deck. And I was really excited when this got spoiled because I knew this was the deck that it would go in. Next, we have Kiga the Tide Star. And this is something definitely sacrifice fodder. I mean, it is a 5/5 with flying, which is nice, but in a pinch we can finally, you know, if somebody drops something huge that we know is going to really help them win the game, if we can sacrifice this and then gain control of a creature right away that they played, it's pretty good. And then we can always eternalize it, bring it back, sacrifice it again, do the same thing, take more people's stuff. Next we have the Gyruda, Doom of Depths, and it is not a companion, it's just actually in the deck, and it's kind of cool because it says when it enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, put a creature card with even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield. So if you got 3 opponents and all of us, that's 12 cards that get put into different graveyards, and we get to find an even converted mana cost creature and put that onto the battlefield under our control. Very nice. All right, and then, you know, if we sack that and then, you know, bring it back and recur it, then we get to do it all over again. So just taking people's stuff, which is fun. Agent of Treachery, yeah, it's Agent of Treachery. Then we have our hidden commander in here, and that is Turgid, God of Fright. And again, what we're trying to do with this deck is, if we can get this out, is to start wheeling people. And by wheeling people, I mean making them discard their entire hands, and then drawing either 7 cards or drawing cards equal to the highest number of cards in a player's hand. All right. So Turgid, it says whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent, you put that card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So if this is out and we start wheeling people, there's going to be a salty table, and that's what I'm going for. I'm going for the salt with this deck. No apologies. All right, next we have Magus of the Jar. So these are our wheeling creatures here. This one we can sacrifice it. Each player removes their hand from the game and draws 7 cards. All right, so we do this once. We sacrifice it. Get that trigger. It goes to the graveyard, and then we use the Scarab God's ability, bring it back, and do it again on the next turn. So it's just kind of a way to get people to discard cards and get stuff from their graveyard so that we can eternalize their stuff. All right. Then we have Jace's Archivist. This is actually gets to stay on the battlefield, and we get to tap it. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So constant over and over wheeling again. Great card here for this deck. Then we have Mind Slicer. So, you know, if we're getting down low on cards and we don't care if we discard our hand or if we can just start like bringing stuff back from people's graveyards, we play this, and then we can sacrifice it, and when it dies, each player discards their hand. So it kind of makes people like not want to kill this card either. You know, we attack for the 4/3. Some people aren't going to want this thing to die, so they're going to let that damage go through. All right. Tormod the Desecrator. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So it's just good for some tokens for protection while we set up. All right. Next we have Grave Titan, which just seems like obvious in this deck. Has Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield attacks, put 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. So just making a bunch of zombie tokens. I mean, that doesn't go like really thematically with this deck, but it flavor-wise, it should be in this. Okay. And here we go. We have Elegeth Crossroads Augur, and this says if you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So think about this. If we have this on the battlefield and we have 4 zombies, right? At the beginning of our upkeep, Scarab God tells us to scry X. Well, if we scry X, this says we're going to draw X cards instead. So just at the beginning of our upkeep, we are going to have 4 cards that we're going to draw, and then our draw steps, we're going to draw 5 cards per turn. That's only if we have 4 zombies. We could have upwards like 6, 7 zombies, maybe, if we get lucky. And drawing that many cards at our upkeep is pretty incredible. And doing so, we have cards like Sphinx of the Second Sun, which gives us an additional beginning phase, which means you get a untap, upkeep, and draw steps in our second main phase. So we're going to be drawing even more cards if we have these 2 on the battlefield together. These 2 with the Scarab God, it doesn't seem like it would be very easy. You know, it's a lot of mana. You have to do it over several turns. Things are going to get removed, but if we can like get one of these out, then the one's in the graveyard and we eternalize it, it's possible we can make this happen and draw ourselves a lot of cards. So not sure if it's viable, but it seems like fun, and I'm going to try it out. Okay, next we got God Eternal Kefnet. We do have a lot of instants and sorceries in this deck, so it's kind of nice to be able to put a card into our hand and then cast a copy of those instants and sorceries at 2 mana less. So not only do we get to copy it, make that copy for cheap, but we also get to put that card into our hand and cast it again later on. All right. And then we have Opposition Agent, just because, you know, it's good. We're going to be able to steal stuff out of people's decks if they go to search your library. We flash this in. Instead, we're searching their library. Pretty good card. Then we have Consuming Aberration, so just good in a graveyard deck like this. Power gets powered up pretty quick. It's equal number of cards in your opponent's graveyard, so if we're really wheeling people, they're going to have a lot of cards in their graveyards. And then whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card and then puts those cards into their graveyard, right? So filling up our graveyard, our opponent's graveyards, and then beefing this guy up seems like a good deal. And then finally, for our last creature, we do have Thassa's Oracle in here, and yes, we do have the combo with this, which we will get to in just a moment. So if we get those 2 cards in our hand, looks like they were not doing very well, we can get off this combo and just win the game outright. All right. Next, we have a couple tutors here. We're into our instants. So we have Vampiric Tutor. So search a card or your library for a card and put it on top of your library. Mystical Tutor, looking for an instant or sorcery. We have Limdul's Vault, which is pretty good in this deck if we need to get to our combo or get to some of those pieces that we need. We can look at the top 5 cards of our library as many times as you choose, pay a life, put those cards on the bottom of your library, and look at the top 5 cards of your library. Shuffle all but the top 5 cards of your library and put those 5 on top in any order. So basically you can pay 1 to look at, for every 5 cards you want to look at the top of your library. If you don't like those 5 cards, put it on the bottom of your deck, pay another life, look at the next top 5. Basically it just helps us dig and get to those things that we want to get and have them out on the battlefield. All right. We do have our counter package. So we have Pact of Negation, Swansong, Mana Drain, Arcane Denial, Counterspell, and Force of Will. So we do have a pretty robust counter package, and basically we just want to be able to protect our stuff to make sure that we get things set up the way we want it to. And if we need another turn and we got some of these free counter spells like Pact of Negation or Force of Will, so that we can just untap later and just pay for that cost of Force of or Pact of Negation, or get rid of a blue card with Force of Will, we can do that. So I think we have a pretty robust counter package here in this deck to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. All right, we do have 1 removal spell here with Pongify, and I don't really need a whole lot of removal because I want to either steal stuff or get stuff out of their graveyard anyway. So this is just, in a pinch where you may need it. All right. And then we have a nice wheel spell here. This is one that would definitely want to be played with Turgid on the battlefield because it says any number of target opponents each discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. So that means we're not drawing 7 cards. We only get to draw 1. But if Turgid's on the battlefield and all of our opponents discard their hands and we don't have to, that puts us up by quite a bit. So cool card with Wheel and Deal here. All right. Hence the name of the deck, Wheel and Steel. All right, so then we do have Demonic Consultation to go with Thassa's Oracle to get the combo to win the game. All right, and then let's move on to our sorceries. We do have Agadeem Awakening and Seagate Restoration, so that we do have some lands on the back here if we need them. I think with these 2 included, we're up to 38 lands, I think, total, or 36 without these. All right, so this lets us draw cards. This lets us return stuff from our graveyard to the battlefield. So good to have those options on those 2 cards. Then, of course, we have some more wheels here with Windfall. Each player discards their hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards your players discard this way. So again, if we have Turgid, we're going to get all those cards they discarded, or all those permanents, I should say. And then if we don't, then we're going to get some stuff in the graveyard, probably some creatures that we can reanimate. All right. Same thing with Dark Deal. Each player discards all hands. So everyone does that except for they draw cards equal to the most -1. All right, so you get 1 less card that way than as a Windfall. But they're pretty similar cards. They're both 3 mana and they do similar things. But Dark Deal, you get to draw less cards, 1 less per player. And then we have Whispering Madness. So our last wheels card here. Each player discards their hands, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. And then the cool thing about Whispering Madness is that it does have Cipher. So after we play it, we can exile it onto, encode it onto a creature. And every time that creature deals combat damage, we get to wheel them again. So that's a pretty cool ability there. I like that Cipher. All right, then we have just some things here. So Jataxian Probe to get to look at somebody's hand and draw a card. Reanimate to bring something back instantly, or not instantly, but I mean just bring it back from the battlefield without having to pay the Scarab God's cost. We do have Praetor's Grasp, which is just nasty. You just go search somebody's library and then exile, then cast it. All right. And then we have Diabolic Intent, a nice tutor because we don't care too much about sacrificing creatures because we can get them back, so it's a good card to have in this deck. We do have Demonic Tutor. We have Buried Alive to get stuff in our graveyard so that we can reanimate stuff right away. We do have a board wipe with Damnation. And then, if this is possible, I don't know. I've only got to pull this card off once in a Commander game because it's 9 mana, but Rise of the Dark Realms, if we keep wheeling people like we want to, and they have all those creatures into their graveyards, we're going to put all those under our control, and it's going to be pretty nasty. I would love to get this pull off and not have everyone scoop right away. All right, let's get into our enchantments. First off, great card here. We have Waste Not. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature. Whenever an opponent discards a land, add 2 black mana to your mana pool. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature card, non-land card, draw a card. So this has a little bit of everything. We are wasting nothing, hence the name Waste Not. Great, great card in this deck. Then we have Training Grounds, and this is essential because this reduces the cost of the Scarab God by 2. Instead of playing 2 blue-black, we just play blue-black to eternalize something in a graveyard. Alright, so all activated abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. It can't reduce it to less than 1 mana. Alright, so we can't cast stuff for free, but basically this is just for the Scarab God's ability, only costing 1 blue and 1 black. We have Heuristic Study to draw some cards. We have Paradox Haze because we want to have extra upkeep so that we can scry if we have, the Scarab God out, so scry a lot, twice per turn, and then, if we have that Elagath out as well, we're going to be drawing even more cards. We're going to draw double the amount with Paradox Haze, so that's kind of a nice bringing that in as well. Next we have Court of Cunning, so at the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players, each mills 2 cards. If you're the Monarch, those players mill 10 cards instead. So not only if we're the Monarch, we get to draw a card at the end step, but we also get to make people mill stuff. So this is like a little bit of mill that we do have in this deck, so pure mill. Court of Ambition, if we become the Monarch, we get to draw a card at our end step. And then also at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. So the discard stuff comes in candy here. If you're the Monarch, they lose 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So a lot of times they're probably going to take life instead of discarding things because of what we are playing. And Life Drain is good. Alright, and then we have Mind's Dilation. Whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, so at least once per turn if somebody's playing a spell, we get to look at the top card of the library and we get to cast it without paying its mana cost. That means timing restrictions don't apply to this. We get to just cast it. It tells us that we can. That's pretty busted right there. Like that card a lot in this deck. Alright, time for our ramp package and artifacts. We do have Soul Ring. We have Expedition Maps so we can go and find us a land. We have Arcane Signet. Felwar Stone because most people are going to be playing blue and black at a commander table. It's probably just going to be there. Dimir Signet. Wayfarer's Bauble so we can go out and find another land. And then we have Lightning Greaves for some protection for our commander, and Swiftfoot Boots. Swiftfoot Boots as well. So we have those 2 equipments to protect us. Now let's take a look at the mana base. All right, we have Polluted Delta, Watery Grave. I think one thing I will probably add to this will be the blue and black Snowland, just because it does have like the basic land types on it, so I haven't put that in here yet, but I think I'll add that. I think those might be good in Commander with fetch lands. I don't know. We have Watery Grave, Drowned Catacomb. So these are just like, our typical, 2-colored lands. You got Morphic Pool, which is, I pulled this out of an expedition, or a Zendikar Rising expedition box, and I was pretty excited about that one. That was really cool. Clearwater Pathway, Underground River, Sunken Ruins, Dark Slick Shores, Tainted Isle, which is a good budget land, I think. It says add blue or black if you control a swamp, so that's kind of a cool budget land, really cheap. Sunken Hollow. Sunken Ruins. I was like, do I have 2 Sunken Hollows in here? What's going on? All right. Fetid Pools. It's got cycling on there in case we need to draw a card. Temple of Asit to Scry, Dimir Aqueduct, just to kind of ramp us a little bit, I guess. And then our 2 big ramp lands, we do have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cobble Coffers in here. So we do have both of these cards. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other types. And then it says for Cobble Coffers, pay 2, tap it, add a black mana for each swamp you control. So if we have a bunch of lands out, we're going to add like a ton of mana with that. Everyone knows those two synergies with these cards. Yeah, perfect for this deck. Okay, we do have Phyrexian Tower as a sack outlet. We don't have a whole lot of sack outlets, and that's fine. We're not really trying to sack our own stuff because really we're trying to steal all of our opponent's stuff, so we don't really want to sack things unless we really need to. Command Tower, Fabled Passage, Field of the Dead, so we can make some zombies. We do have enough lands in here that I think that we could probably get out enough to activate this or trigger this Field of the Dead ability. We have Castle Lochthwain so that we can draw cards in case we need to. If we start getting low, we need to get some of those draw spells, so this will help us out. Castle Vantress, if we have Elegeth out, this is great because we can pay 4 to draw 2 cards. I mean, it's not bad on a land. Can't really complain about that. We do have Reliquary Tower in case we do get to the point where we are drawing a lot of stuff and we want to be able to make sure we're not discarding those. And then we have Mystic Sanctuary. So it says, when you enter the battlefield, if you control 3 or more other islands, you can put an instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. And then for our basics, I had to go with the Hour of Devastation lands because, you know, this card's from Hour of Devastation, so I had to do that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 islands, and finally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swamps. So that is the deck. I would love to know what you think down there. This is probably going to be, you know, a work in progress. I'll probably do some upgrades. I do want to get a bribery to put in here, but they're a little pricey at this point. Maybe that new one from Modern Horizons that's basically like a suspend bribery. I don't know if that would be very good in this. So I left that out. But yeah, I'd like to put bribery, maybe some other things. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing out on some other black or blue wheels that might be good. If you know any of those, please leave a message down in the comments and let me know if I missed anything. Just any comments, what you think about this deck, how you think I can make improvements, what I could take out, what I could include. Let me know down in the comments. Gently tap the like button. Don't smash it. Smashing is for the Hulk, and we will see you next time.